Watching Yorkshire Television. Our late night entertainment continues now with a live mix of music and conversation on the James Whale Radio Show.
Live tonight on the James Whale Show, we reveal the true identity of the Tory party's stalking horse. Hello, good morning, and welcome to the show. I thought it was a sort of fairly serious introduction to the programme. I pinched the lines off somebody else. Tonight, before I go any further, let me introduce you to two of my guests. They're here in the studio. They really need no introduction. People often say that, so I won't bother tonight. Sir Rhodes and Edwina, thank you for coming along. Now, do you want to... We've just heard on the news as a sort of, you know, possibility of certain people standing. Do you think... you would like to reveal the true identity tonight or not?
I think Edwina has a secret message for us tonight.
You rotten so-and-so, you.
Is that true, Edwina? I mean, are you standing?
Not on this occasion.
Not on this occasion.
I think I'm too young.
Yeah.
But I think you'd make a wonderful Prime Minister.
Oh, darling, you're wonderful.
I know,
I tell you what, you get
know.
yourself elected to Parliament as a Tory MP, and then you can nominate me. That'll be
Sir
the day.
Rhodes, of course, I think he'd make a wonderful Prime Minister. I must, you know, hedge my bets here.
Very nice,
a wonderful Prime Minister as well. The thing, of course, is that I felt after the by-elections last night, I wanted to bring you in here to try and cheer you up just a little bit.
Thanks very much.
Because you must be feeling a little down. We're going to take some calls. The whole subject of the programme is nothing to do with this tonight. This just happens to be fairly topical. We will be talking about anti-Semitism fairly soon, and the number to ring coming up on the screens there is 0532 46 1000. Before we get on with that part of the programme, I hear we have got some calls on the line. Hello?
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 Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can just about hear you. What's your name?
Margaret.
Margaret.
And I'm ringing from London. In fact, my husband Dennis has just been going through trying to find the Continental movie this evening. He's very much interested in the French and the German language. And we were hoping to catch some of that. Instead, we saw your program.
Oh,
and I thought I would insist on saying a few words about the nonsense you were saying about the stalking horse.
Yes, do you want to... go on.
Well, I can reveal who the stalking horse is going to be.
Is it one of my two guests on the programme?
No, it is not. It's going to be somebody called Desert Orchid. Have you read about Desert Orchid? I think it's going to be a serious contender. Some people have suggested it may even be Shergar. I think that is nonsense and ludicrous. It's probably going to be Desert Orchid.
Now...
What is that woman wearing?
Margaret. Margaret, if I can call you Margaret, because...
Of course you may, Mr. Whale.
Thank you. You see, she does watch the show. You said she didn't. She does watch the show, obviously.
The other man, I thought I'd voted him upstairs to the House of Lords. What's he doing on?
I thought these were two friends of yours.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
My memory isn't as good as it was.
No. Well, this is Sir Rhodes. You must remember. Sir Rhodes.
Yes, yes.
Goodness.
Yes. He looks like that man from Emmerdale Farm, I remember.
Yeah, of course. A new contract.
Can I, well, yes, there may be a spot there for you, indeed, yes. Could I ask you, Margaret, before you go, or before I remove you, is there any chance that you will be retiring in the near future?
None at all. And they say that somebody called Heseltine's going to be challenging me. Well, you see the chap that walked out of the cabinet to make a cup of tea and never came back? I think that's him.
I think you've been watching far too much television, actually,
Probably.
Margaret, really. But anyway, thank you very much indeed for your call.
The pleasure's all yours.
Thank you. Margaret Thatcher. Whether it was the real one or not, I don't know.
Sounded very like her.
It did, didn't it?
Yes,
it did.
Very suspicious.
I think Dennis is the stalking horse.
You think Dennis could be in there with a chance? Because if she gets thrown out, she could keep it in the
We'd
family.
all vote for Dennis, wouldn't we?
Certainly.
We think he's absolutely wonderful.
That's right. We'd have a lot more rigour and sport in this country.
Well, we'd all be more relaxed, wouldn't we?
School sports would be transformed.
Absolutely.
Definitely. We'd have them all back playing fields and a lot.
Would we see you both back in the government, do you think?
Well,
Under another Prime Minister?
I think I could manage to pour Dennis the occasional drink, and you could put the ice in the glass, couldn't you?
Because obviously you won't be getting back under the present incumbent at number 10. Thank you for the moment. Tonight, we're talking about anti-Semitism. It's 52 years ago since the Kristallnacht, which was let me just explain, it was a very nasty attack on Jews in Germany 52 years ago yesterday, if you think of today as Saturday morning. This weekend, of course, is Remembrance Sunday as well. And this year has seen more anti-Semitic attacks in this country than there has been since the 60s. Now, why? I'm a little naive, really. I just wonder why on earth people can't get on with each other. So I'd like to explore that tonight. If you have any views, call us. You know the number. 0532, can we put it up again? 46 1000. Before we do that, let's look at what has been happening.
Whaley goes to town.
Most of the Jewish population of Great Britain read the Jewish Chronicle, and most of them think that this situation shouldn't be publicised. I wonder what the people who work here think, though.
I feel very strongly it's something that we should discuss, and there's a temptation in all such situations to confuse a reluctance to blow it out of proportion with a reluctance to discuss it altogether. And I think not only is it important that we do discuss it, it's important that the Jewish Chronicle provide a forum where it can be discussed openly.
What do you think that the reality is then? Because on the one hand, some people who've been called extremists have said that vigilante groups ought to be formed, people should be prepared to protect themselves, their families and their property. On the other hand, people say it's not nearly as bad, let's not get too heated and carried away with it.
I think stage one is getting the facts right and getting the context right. I think even the Jewish Chronicle, and particularly the Jewish Chronicle in some senses, has been guilty of sometimes reporting anti-Semitism without giving the context, without taking a step back. And that's one thing that we're determined to change now. Not by any means to stop reporting these incidents, but once and for all to say, okay, let's take a year's distance on this, see what kinds of incidents there have been, how serious they are, what kinds of comparisons one can make either historically or to other countries. Not to hide it, but to put it in context.
I think the readers of the Jewish Chronicle are extremely concerned because what's been happening lately, say since May, is something which we haven't seen for some time, certainly not since the 60s. And there is a mentality that says, you know, if you see a swastika daubed on a wall, that's outrageous anti-Semitism, and people get very worried about it.
What sort of feedback do you get from the readers?
Well, concern, a certain amount of fear, and the feeling that they would like to see more action on the part of the official community.
This is part of a wider issue of racial intolerance in this country and elsewhere.
But what are Gentiles frightened of then?
Well, there's lots of things. Historically, there's the old blood libel. I think there's a religious side to anti-Semitism. I think there is an atavistic set of economic and other prejudices, which education, and only education over a long period of time, can unlock. There's a gut, nasty, historical side to anti-Semitism, which underlies all of this.
Well, there's two levels of anti-Semitism in this country. There's a kind of genteel anti-Semitism, which has always existed and will go on existing.
What's that?
That's the kind of golf club where you can't join if you've got a Jewish name.
I can't, let me just, yes, I've forgotten about that sort of thing. There are, aren't there? There are golf clubs in this country. I can think of a couple. Perhaps I should reveal them on the programme tonight. Who that if you have a Jewish name, they say you can't join, but they don't actually tell you that, do they?
It's not just golf clubs. There are all kinds of little niggling examples of that kind of genteel.
But that's racist, isn't it? Can't you go to...
purely racist, and it's based on racism, and if you've got a name like Goldstein, you can't join. If you've got a name like Stone, you can, and I think it's pathetic, quite frankly.
Finally, do you think vigilante groups are going to come? Do you want to see vigilante groups in certain Jewish areas?
Personally, I think we haven't reached the point where we need them. If this carries on, then I think it will happen, yes. We have seen indications of that kind of thing happening in very strictly Orthodox areas like Stamford Hill in North London. And yes, if the episodes continue, there will be vigilante groups.
46 1000, James Whale.
Now, there are a number of people that think that this particular subject shouldn't actually be discussed. We have a few of them outside the studios tonight. But Sir Rhodes, in the Jewish Chronicle, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, you wrote a letter, which I thought was quite disturbing. You yourself are not Jewish.
No.
But your constituency has a number of synagogues in it and a large Jewish population.
I was the head of a Jewish school for 5 years.
Now, you said that the danger is that such material could influence the uninformed towards anti-Semitic beliefs and even action. How serious do you take that? Do you think that people are likely to go on the streets?
Yes, I think the material that is being pushed through the doors of some of my constituents.
Stuff like this
yes,
thing here called the Holocaust News, which we'll talk
that has been pushed
about a little later.
It's pushed through two sets of doors. It's pushed through the doors of Jewish people to upset them. And it's pushed through the doors of, particularly on, if one can say, on council estates, to try and get people out in the streets against the Jewish community. So both sides are dangerous. It worries the Jewish people, and quite rightly so, who receive this. And I mean, I don't agree with a word of what is written in this material. But if it comes through and they read it, and they talk about the blood libel, which was mentioned previously, and they talk about the Holocaust never having existed, that it's just been invented by the Jews, then I think we're heading for trouble with the uninformed mind. And after all, if you look at the degrees of truancy in schools these days, in many areas, they're not actually any countervailing.
But a number of people say that if a program like this talks about this subject, then it's going to actually encourage people who never thought about being racist or anti-Semitic to actually go out and behave like that.
I don't agree at all with that. I think by the way you're dealing with it, and the way you deal with other things on this program to clean the air, you put the information out, and people then make up their own minds, and that, to my mind, is good. You're not lifting it as a great issue.
You have to discuss these issues.
Now, you are Jewish, Edwina.
Yes, you have to discuss these issues and difficult and unpleasant issues, because, I mean, for my kids, they don't remember the war. I mean, I was born after the war. They don't remember any of it. For them, it's in a history book. And like many things in history books, people don't always know what to believe, what not to believe. You have to discuss these things. You have to air them. You have to hold up to the light unpleasant and difficult and horrible views and let people make up their own minds about them.
Have you ever been attacked for being Jewish? Verbally abused for being Jewish or not?
Not that I can recall, but then as a woman, you tend to get far more of that. You tend to get put down far more because you're a woman. That's certainly my experience.
Let's take a couple of calls. George from Glasgow is on the line. George, hello.
Good evening, James.
George, your point, please.
My point, James, is that I am anti-Semitic, but I'm anti-Semitic culture, not actually anti-individual Jews. I think Jewish culture...
Let me get this right. You wouldn't move if Edwina moved next door to you? Well, I mean...
well, she's a Tory. I think I would be tempted to, yes. After I set fire to her house, of course.
Let's keep the politics out of this, George.
Right,
Try and keep on this. You're against the Jewish culture.
I think it...
Why?
Well, it's grossly materialistic. I think the Jews have a... Well, she's laughing. She's grossly materialistic. I think that the whole Jewish culture is... Everything depends...
Is this because it seems to me that one thing that the Jewish culture does do, it tries to get the family to stick together, that families actually do look after each other.
Yes, but this can be a bad point, James. You know, it can become...
That's a bad point.
It can become dynastic. You know, like a dynasty. And it's the family at the expense...
You'd rather the state looked after everybody?
No, it's the family at the expense of society.
Okay, that's a good point. We'll discuss it a little later. For the moment, we'll take a break. Won't we? Right, welcome back. We're talking about anti-Semitism. Now, with me is Dowager Lady Jane Birdwood. And Lady Jane Birdwood speaks out a lot about the Holocaust. In fact, you believe it didn't actually happen. Is that right?
Yes, I think that it's been discovered that no more than 1 million, in fact, now I've just seen it lately, no more than 1 million died, and I suspect a lot of them are Gentiles.
But that's, I mean, there are people from the camps, there are documented evidence of the vicious nastiness that the Nazis carried out. How can you sit on television and say this?
Well, the Germans themselves have been busy looking into it because there have been so many Holocausts, as we call it, Holocausts shown on television, and we hear about it so much. So they've been looking into it.
Now, you are involved in this magazine called the Holocaust News, aren't you?
No.
You're not?
Nothing to do with it.
But these are the people who would rather you weren't on the television, of course, you can hear outside, which is a little bit ridiculous. And I think, can we be heard or not? Because I really, yes, we can, okay, we'll carry on. I mean, you want to come and say to people that you don't want any Jewish people in this country?
No, no.
You don't want blacks in this country? But you are an out-and-out racist, aren't you?
No,
You're
I'm
quite
not.
proud to be a racist.
I am not an anti-Semite.
You're not an anti-Semite?
No, no. What I'm asking the Jews to do is to look at themselves a bit.
Well, we should all look at ourselves.
No, wait a second and ask themselves, what is wrong? Why are people so worried?
But you've been distributing this garbage, haven't you?
It's not garbage.
It is garbage. Look, it says, the Holocaust did not begin and end with Auschwitz. What about Dresden? You go on and on and on about it.
Right.
It's written like that. Can we get a look at that? It's what you're doing is stirring up so much hatred amongst people.
Yes,
you must know you're doing that.
No, but
Why?
the hatred is being stirred up from the other side.
No.
Yes, we have now these war crime trials. We're not a
The
bit
war-
happy.
the war
we had
crime
this
trials.
business at York, and that upset a lot of people. This going back 800 years to discuss
Lady
what
Birdwood,
went on.
I'm a bit of a gentleman, although people don't realise that. You're 77 years old. I can't really be too nasty to you, but I mean, a lot of people are going to treat you as a crank, hopefully, that you come on television, people that fought in the war, people who've been in concentration camps, and we have a man on later who has been in a concentration camp, and you're coming here saying, how many people do you think were killed by the Nazis?
Well, I'm simply saying that the very latest report, I think it's just over 1 million. May I
Just
say, yes.
over 1 million human beings were destroyed in a death camp.
Yes, but they weren't destroyed by gas, but they were destroyed by typhus. A great many
this is
of these
ridiculous.
people, no, it isn't. A great many of these people died from typhus.
So why did people admit to killing millions and millions of people in the death camps?
Yes.
Why did some of the guards on some of the death camps admit to doing it?
Well, that's what I would suggest, that the Jews themselves look into this matter, and it's become
Lady
an
Birdwood,
impossibility that we have a Holocaust every other day.
It's
on
true
the
to
television.
say, isn't it really, that one of the main reasons you're so anti-Jewish is the way that they slaughter farm animals. You're not anti-Jewish.
I'm suggesting to you that if they feel that there's anti-Semitism growing in this country, they do something about it.
What should they do?
And look at themselves.
What do you think the Jews should do?
Well, you talked about ritual slaughter. They should stop it. Because we're
I think with respect though, that's a very insignificant thing to talk about.
No. We don't.
We're a multi-religious country now. We're not just a Christian country, we're a Christian, Muslim country, Jewish country. But that's fine. The whole world is going to become one. Aren't you happy about that?
No.
Why not?
Well, Englishmen are not a bit happy about it.
What about Welsh, Scots, Irish?
Either of them, none of them.
You believe in nationalism?
I believe in patriotism.
But that patriotism is what starts wars.
No, it isn't.
Of course it is.
No, it isn't. Patriotism.
If we
never
got rid of
started
patriotism
a war.
and we had one world, we're going to have a European community before long. Isn't that good?
No, it's bad. We lose our sovereignty and many, many other things that we treasure. We will.
Lady Birdwood, I really can't believe some of the things you're saying. We'll talk more a little bit later on. Keep the calls coming in. Keep coming in, and we'll be back after this break. Well, we won't. Video. We're going to have some music. Now, with me is Joey Behrman, and Joey is the only survivor in the United Kingdom from Latvia, is that right?
From Riga.
I'm sorry about this, Joey, but our viewers at home can't really hear this. Okay. Unfortunately, Joey's an elderly man. He was in the camps. He would like to come and talk about anti-Semitism. He has a lot of stories to tell about it. He was one of the witnesses at the Buchenwald trial. He was involved in the Odessa file. I'm going to say this because I know that you find it difficult to concentrate, don't you, with these people? These people outside would rather we didn't discuss this. Would you rather we didn't discuss it?
No, no, I want to discuss it.
You think it is a necessary thing to discuss?
Of course, everything should be discussed.
You see, they're singing out there at the moment, "Build a bonfire." And it shows the mentality of some of these people who really don't understand what's going on, that there is this rise in anti-Semitism that has to be explained.
They're interfering with my thoughts. I can't concentrate. I can't reply to you when they're shouting louder than my voice.
Do you think they should listen to what you have to say and people like you?
Yes, of course they should listen, because...
How do you respond to the woman I was talking to earlier who said that the Holocaust didn't happen?
Well, I didn't hear what she said because of the noise outside.
Well, she said, basically, she doesn't think the Holocaust happened and that no more than maybe, she said, 1 million Jews died, which to me, ridiculous.
Well, it's more than it's more than 1 million. If it didn't happen, I would like my family back. There were people in Poland, in the Baltic states, in Russia, in the Ukraine, and they come to 500, 600, maybe 700 relations of mine with cousins. Let me have them back if it never happened. But it's probably nearer 5 million, even if it isn't 6 million.
Now, in the notes I have on you, apparently you woke up with 4,000 corpses around you.
No, not in one day.
Not in one day.
This happened over many years, and it happened in many camps and in many countries. In some camps it was worse than in others. It depended on the commander on what he decided.
Joey, we're not going to have a rabble like these stupid people outside beat us.
So
we're going to take an early... No, what we're going to do is we're going to take an early commercial break, and we're going to go and find a quiet place and continue our discussion, all right?
That's very kind of you. Are there no policemen there?
Yeah, they're outside. Right, welcome back. I'm sorry about that, Joey, because I understand how difficult it is to talk with that sort of noise going on in the background. Edwina is with us as well now. Joey, how long were you actually in the camps for?
For just over 4 years.
For just over 4 years. When you were liberated at the end of that, how did you feel?
Empty, completely empty. I was the first to be taken out by the American Intelligence Service for the only reason that I sat in the commander of Buchenwald's, the SS colonel, in his chair, and I was the official interpreter. And they said to me, who is looking after you? I said, I beg your pardon, I'm hard of hearing. And they told me to get in one of the cars. It was Psychological Warfare Safe Intelligence section. But they made a mess of it, as well as the Allies. Today, Germany is more powerful, and Japan is more powerful than anybody richer. And so it pays to have concentration camps, and it pays to murder. Nobody can convince me of the contrary.
Why do you think there is this hatred, or seems to be this hatred in the world of the Jewish people?
Yes, well, the Japanese in their camps didn't kill, with their Shinto religion, they didn't kill Jews, they killed Australians or New Zealanders or British people. You won't eradicate anti-Semitism in this world. I mean, when Hitler came out of the womb of Saddam Hussein, he wasn't an anti-Semite. Something must have happened on the way.
Edwina, how do you feel when you meet somebody like Joey? Because although you're Jewish, you fell out with your Jewish father, didn't you, when you decided to marry a Gentile?
Yes, that was a long time. I mean, the thing that upsets me most about this evening, actually, is that the gang of youngsters outside there who are trying to stop all of us talking. The real danger in a free country like ours is the people who would try and stop free speech. And I've listened to Joey. I think he's a great man, and I feel very proud to be here with him. members of my family were lost. My aunt, her husband, all the family went in Auschwitz. I don't need anyone to tell me that these things happen.
I'm going to have to stop you for one moment because, of course, we didn't expect to be doing, as it's a live show, we didn't expect to be doing this part in this room. We've got to fix our microphones. Whilst we're doing that, I interviewed a week ago a gentleman called Professor Alderman, who I have heard it say that the British Board of Deputies dislike almost as much as Adolf Hitler. Look at this.
Well, yes, Professor. I mean, if it has any bearing on the subject, I have been circumcised, but...
Who were you circumcised by?
Well, I don't know. It was a long time ago.
Don't you have a certificate for it?
I don't think I do.
I think I should ask your mother for the certificate.
Well, anyway, that aside, Professor, you have come in for a lot of stringent criticism for some of your outspoken ideas on what should be done to stop this anti-Semitism that we seem to be going through a phase of at the moment.
Right.
I don't believe you mean some of the things you said, though.
I meant everything that I say. Of course, telling the truth in Anglo-Jewry is, for me, an occupational hazard. And what I've been criticised for, and what I was criticised at the Board of Deputies last week for, was telling the truth. But telling it to a wider audience than the ghetto that Anglo-Jewry likes to think it is.
But they are accusing you particularly of maybe encouraging people to be anti-Semitic because of the sort of things you're saying. You've said that you believe people should actually be forming themselves into vigilante groups.
I have not used the word vigilante. I've gone out of my way to stress vigilance, not vigilante. I believe that one has to be realistic about the level of physical threat that there is to Jews in this country. I mean live Jews, not dead Jews. And one has to respond, and one has to respond in a measured but realistic way. Simply sweeping these matters under the carpet has not done anything to stop the attacks.
All right, what do you mean by vigilance rather than vigilante then? What do you want people in the Jewish community to do?
I think that there has to be a degree of self-help. There has to be a sophisticated organisation of communal self-defence.
Why do you think now? I mean, we haven't had any of this sort of desecration of cemeteries and stuff like that since the 60s. Why is it happening now?
Well, you see, you're wrong there. There have been desecrations of cemeteries continually. The fact is they're not reported. Maybe the reason why there's been more publicity is because Jews have been so afraid that they have started to speak out of desperation. In a way, the desperation may produce some good. Now, you ask, why now? And I believe that there are reasons why there has been an increase in the level of attacks on Jews, not Jewish cemeteries, but Jews.
I was going to bring on that point. I mean, so everybody's concerned about the cemeteries, but what about the attacks on living people?
Right, I'm more concerned about attacks on live Jews than dead Jews. And I believe that there are reasons for this. Firstly, there has been a disgraceful campaign launched by the animal welfare lobby against the Jewish method of slaughter, in which the discourse has spilled over from perfectly rational argument, which I'm prepared to engage in, to anti-Jewish prejudice of the vilest kind. You see, there does seem to be a move to almost make respectable a certain level of genteel anti-Semitism. Now, the danger point in the 1930s was, the danger point occurred because street anti-Semitism, which there will always be, as long as there are Jews in this country, there will be street anti-Semitism, that found a leadership to articulate its beliefs in the middle classes. And I believe that there is a danger of that happening today.
Let me go on from there to the situation in America, which you've been quite vocal about. You have said that if what happens here now happened in America, there'd be civil war. Do you believe that?
I think if half the level of anti-Jewish manifestations that we've experienced here in London had been experienced in New York, unless the police and the other authorities had done something about it, there would be riots in New York, because the New York Jewish community would never have stood for this level of anti-Jewish prejudice.
Can Jews and Gentiles live side by side?
They can live side by side, absolutely, at the level of mutual respect of the differences as well as of the similarities.
Civil war, I mean, that's a frightening thing to say that if we had the situation got worse, we could be...
I think this guy's as crazy as Lady Birdbrain over here. I mean, that sort of thing is just awful. You can't go in for that kind of thing. If you're going to defeat your enemies in the end, you have to behave better than they are. One of the things that bothers me about some of this discussion is that we should be aware that some of this racialist feeling is directed against other people. It's directed against Muslims, it's directed against Hindus, it's directed against all sorts of groups in society. And in a country like ours, we are so mixed and we gain so much from being a very much more mixed community. Like my constituency, like Derby, I think we have to be aware that there's strength from that diversity.
Lady Birdwood would say, I'm sure, though, that that's something you're totally against, isn't it? This mixture of cultures and religions within this country.
Yes, I think Mrs. Currie is trying to say that we would like what her country has. We don't like it.
Well, so this is her country.
Well, I beg your pardon. I was talking about Israel. That
That's
Israel
not my country.
would...
This is my country. I'm a Conservative Member of Parliament of South Derbyshire.
Yes.
This is my country and I'm very proud of it.
Yes,
How
but
do you feel, Lady
we
Birdwood, about having a Jewish Member of Parliament in this country? Does that upset you?
No, it doesn't. Not a bit. I told you when I spoke to you that I don't hate the Jews. I am not an anti-Semite.
But you spend your time going on about how the Holocaust didn't happen, how people should be nationalistic and we should have repatriation of people.
I don't go on saying this at all. I'm talking about multicultural. We don't like it in this. We don't like it.
I like
the
it.
country.
I like it.
Yes.
My constituents like it. My constituents are part of it.
Yes, but
I have Muslim constituents, I have Methodist constituents, I have Sikh constituents, I'm about to have Japanese constituents.
Yes.
I have a lot of British constituents, not just English, Scots
But
and
an
Irish
awful lot
and Welsh.
of your constituents don't like it.
And a lot of
awful
them
lot.
do. We
No.
go and argue about it over curry. Hang on, no, listen.
Go on then.
We go and argue about it over a meal, a curry meal. We drink a glass of wine from France with it. We have a pizza. We
That's
find
got
that
nothing to do with it. Do
Of course
excuse
it
me.
has.
No,
Of
no.
course it has. That's
It's much
multicultural.
deeper in English people. We have never been a multicultural
This is
country.
absolute rubbish.
We have not
we seem to
been.
be,
No.
we seem to be getting off the point here. Let me bring it back to the point. The point is that it seems to be that people are going out of their way to attack. We're talking about anti-Semitism on the program tonight. Going out of their way to attack somebody because they happen to be slightly different to somebody else. The sort of literature that you peddle is encouraging this sort of hatred. Unfortunately, probably Professor Alderman on the other side is doing likewise. It seems very, very strange that you can't see that that's just going to harm things. You know, the sort of things you're saying is going to encourage maybe young people who don't think about it very well to go out and say, oh yes, that elderly lady, she looked a nice lady, she must be right.
Yes, but
Don't you feel any responsibility at all?
No, I'm asking you, are you saying that we may not speak our minds about multicultural?
You're
Are
here
you
on this
saying
program at great problem
Because
for me, speaking your mind. I'd have a lot easier time if you weren't here, if I'd kept you hidden away.
So let us speak.
Well, this is
So let us speak, Jane. Let's hear it.
Edwina?
Let's hear it.
Well, the 85% of the people of this country do not want multiracialism.
They
dislike it intensely.
They don't want anything forced on
There
them,
is
of
too
course.
much trouble already in this country, and we're going to bang into it more and more.
Sir Rhodes?
James, I think one of the strengths of this country is the ability to absorb within an overall culture. And I mean, if you say, where did we all start? We go back to the Danes, you go back to before, you came from Central Europe. My people came, I'm a Huguenot. We came from France in the 17th century. We came here. We like living in this country. We think it's like Edwina, it's a marvelous country to be in. And the strength of this country is the ability to absorb and to become British. And let me just finish. Let me just finish.
Until 30 years
Let me
ago,
just
we were
finish.
all
Hang on.
No, that's not true.
I have
That's not
25.
true.
I have 25,000 Gujaratis in my constituency. They are working very hard. They are actually, a higher percentage of them is going to university by actually working here. Their children growing up will grow up here, and they will wear English clothes, and they will absorb the atmosphere from here. On Sunday night, I shall be at a big meeting attached to them. And anything that upsets this, by throwing almost like a grenade in the middle, to say that we actually have to battle against one another and we can't get on with one another, is very dangerous indeed, just as safe as the rewriting of history.
So, Rhodes, we have to take a quick break. Before we do that, one last question to you and a quick answer if I can. Surely, if people agreed with Lady Birdwood as she thinks they do, then at the polls we would see nationalists getting a larger vote, wouldn't we?
I think the very fact that, I mean, we are a free country and they can put up on the rest, and the major parties have absorbed and gone on, and the extreme nationalists poll very, very small, only in 2 or 3 figures at a time, indicates the sensibility and the sense of Britain.
We'll take a break. Right, welcome back. Now we seem to have lost me. We're in the last part of the show, are we? In the final part, on part 4. We're going to take some calls before we do anything else. Morris from Cardiff. Hello, Morris. Hello, Morris.
I'd like to ask Edwina a question.
You'd like to ask Edwina a question?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead. Can you hear?
Obviously, any sane person recognises the atrocities in the Holocaust as being terrible. But how can this justify the atrocities the Israelis have committed in Palestine?
It doesn't. I mean, no atrocity ever justifies another atrocity. 2 wrongs don't make a right. And remember this as well, that amongst the people that were murdered by the Nazis were mentally handicapped people, were communists, were Poles, were all sorts of people. I mean, I was an adult before I realised that a very large number of people who weren't Jewish were also murdered by the Nazis. That's what a regime does when it wants to keep itself pure. That's the sort of thing that Lady Birdwood's been saying. That's what happens. It doesn't justify it. I'm not a Zionist. I have no compunction at defending anybody or anything that goes on in another country. My interest and concern always is to see what's happening in our country here in Britain.
Okay, Morris, thank you. Mo from Huddersfield. Hello, Mo.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to make a couple of points about the subject. I feel like the main problem is ignorance, because ignorance breeds racism of all kinds, plus a lack of education and understanding within both families and schools. For example, if a parent or someone that children look up to is blatantly anti-Semitic, then their views and opinions are obviously going to be passed on to that child. But if the child is taught that everybody, whether they're Jewish, coloured or homosexual, has as much right to exist as they do, because after all we're all living human beings, then I think the battle is half won. I also think that the majority of people who are anti-Semitic really don't know the reason why they are. They see the Jewish people as just another minority group to strike out at.
Mo, I think that's a great point. I don't think anybody could disagree at all with that. Don't you think she's sensible, Lady Birdwood?
No, I don't think she understands at all. If she were, say, 50 or over, she would understand how we feel. You can hear.
Well, what would she know if she was 50 or over that she doesn't know now?
Well, she would know England, she would know Scotland, she would know Wales as they were.
Well, forget as they were,
We were white,
because it isn't important.
Christian
They were,
nation.
it's gone.
We are a white Christian nation.
What's this
And we
white
want
and
to
Christian
keep it.
stuff you seem to
Well,
be
why
hung up
should
on?
we not? That's what the Germans wanted and tried to get.
So if I
and
tell you that I
the
happen
attack
to be a
on the
Muslim...
Germans was the same as on
Can I
us,
ask you something?
by the same people.
Isn't the essence of the Christian faith, which many people, you'd be surprised, do feel strongly about and in favour, isn't the essence of the Christian faith that we should love one another?
Yes,
Isn't that it?
We're flying right in the face of the Creator in mixing.
He didn't create all these people here? He didn't create the young black boy outside?
Presumably, he created the Jewish people as well.
That's right, but he didn't expect them all to live in the same country.
How do you know?
They have, well, because they were given their countries, their land masses, their cultures.
So they all got to stay where they were
their
put
climates, their
by God.
languages.
How many thousand years ago?
Well, you're fighting for people to crowd in on us. I'm fighting for a land of our own, as we've always had. And all the people who came into this country were Caucasians.
That's not true.
Until,
it's simply not true.
Yes.
And so much of the vibrancy of our country and the strength and the interest and the excitement of walking down High Street and the pleasure of seeing what goes on in our country comes from so many different people. An awful lot of it's done by people with blue eyes just like yours, Lady Birdwood.
It's become terrible in this country.
You don't even, what worries me, you see, is you don't even realise what you're doing.
What do you
see,
mean
okay,
what I'm doing?
You're trying to perpetuate this country, this idea of a country that you had when you were younger. I don't wish to be too rude, but your life is coming to an end. And it has to go on. It's going on now in a different kind of world. We're going to have a much, for my children and for their children, it's going to be a much more different world. We're going to be multiracial, multicultural, and people will get on.
Yes, but why? Nobody should be forced to rub together if they don't want to. And in a free country, people should have the right, like Lady Bird, not only to say what she thinks, but also, if she wants to live this very enclosed sort of life. But the fact is that most people in this country, and particularly most young people in this country, sort of people who are watching us now, actually thoroughly enjoy the kind of mix that we have and the pleasure that it comes.
You think the majority of young people in this country are racist and
Not racist.
Oh, sorry. What would you use? What word would you use?
No, they simply object to this invasion. There are up to 15 million now in
That's
this
racism.
country. And they're coming the whole... No, it isn't.
It's nasty.
But I think you should be neutral, sir.
I shouldn't be neutral.
You
Don't
should.
tell me what I should do.
It's somebody who was
my
taking
show.
the program
I'll
like
take any
this.
line I want.
Well, I think
I'm allowing you on my show.
Would you prefer people to be kept separate, apart?
No, on their own, in their own countries.
Separate,
And if we want to play football or play tennis
Was apartheid a good idea? Was apartheid a good idea? People living separately, separate but equal. That was a theory.
This is what is happening in this country.
No.
The
Do you think it was a good idea?
Ganging up together. No, if people are more happy living together, then let them live together.
Well,
Jerry, how do you feel about this? You know.
No, I mean in their own groups.
Do you feel that what Lady Birdwood is saying has any validity at all or not?
But you can't change human nature. What are you going to do? You can't change it in Russia. God knows what's going to happen there, or in Eastern Europe. Hitler couldn't change human nature. They turned against him. Even hundreds of thousands of SS officers, when they saw that the war is lost, they just left all their clothes and ran away. And they promised to fight for Hitler, but in the last resort they just ran.
But this is very depressing that you say this, Joe. I mean, don't you...
I'm sorry, you know, after this knocking I got over there...
It's thrown you completely, hasn't it?
It's thrown me completely. I can't think straight.
Let me talk to Boyd, who's on the phone at the moment. Hello, Boyd.
Hello, James. Good evening.
Hi.
Basically, I'm a 35-year-old Jewish guy. Anti-Semitism takes very many different forms. When I was sort of 11, 12 in school, you'd often get beaten up in the playground. Somebody would say to you, "You flash Jew boy, you killed Jesus." Now things change. I meet people socially in business who aren't Jewish, and too often people say to me, "Oh, you're Jewish? Oh, you're not very Jewish, are you?" You know, as if they expect me to have horns or something, yeah? And I think the press don't help, to be perfectly frank with you. I mean, Terry Marsh has just gone through a big trial. Nobody knows his religion. But an amazing thing, we all know Gerald Ronson's and Jack Lyons and Tony Parnes's, don't we? I wonder why that is. If I may, James, I'd like to put a point to Mrs. Birdwood. She said earlier that 85% of the people in this country don't want a multiracial society. Well, in 1983, she stood for the England Demands Repatriation Party in the Bermondsey by-election, and she got the grand total of 69 votes. And is that 85% of the population, Mrs. Birdwood? Or have you perhaps been economical with the truth?
Mrs.
I can answer
Lady
this.
Birdwood, answer it, please.
Yes. In every poll taken through the years, it has been 75, 85%. The other day, a poll was taken by a national newspaper, by telephone, on whether we would like more of them in or whether we would like no more in. And the figures were 514 for more in and 29,932 for an end to it.
On this question of statistics,
Yes.
insofar that you actually do not accept the question of the ones who were killed in the concentration camps, which I accepted with that, I mean, your figures are suspect for a beginning as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you use the figures to your own advantage. I respect it.
Rose, I think she just...
Well, that was a fortnight.
Can we get back to Boyd's question?
That was a fortnight ago.
Can we get back to... Never mind about that. It'll depend on...
Was it 69, James? How many was it?
You got 69 votes.
That's right.
Out of what?
And the
80,000 people live there?
Yes. And the second time when I stood in Fulham, I got 229. And that's all.
Well, that must have made you feel very good indeed.
No,
very good
it
indeed.
did.
Yes.
You're very welcome.
Boyd, thank you for that.
Come to my constituency.
Graham from Hearts. Let's squeeze one more call in. Graham, hello.
Hello, James.
Yes,
I'd just
Graham.
like to touch on a couple of points.
You'll have to be very quick. I've got about 30 seconds.
All right, the first point is all the anti-Semitism in England against Jews, it doesn't make us more fearful. We, in fact, stick together more. And I'd like to direct a very quick question to Lady Badwood. Are you a member of the National Front Party? And also, if you go on about the Holocaust so much, if it didn't happen, why'd you talk about it so much?
I didn't belong to any nationalist party ever. And as far as the Holocaust is concerned, it's on our screen so frequently that...
Thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid
I think you're a
we've come to the end of the show. And I can't make any comment about that at all. Edwina, thank you very much indeed. Sir Rhodes, thank you. Joey, thank you for watching. Next week the programme is entirely different, a totally different sort of show next week. I hope you can join me then. In the meantime, from all of us, a very good night. Have a nice weekend, and write to me. Let me know what you think about this particular subject as well. Bye-bye.